All right, little Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. You know what that means? PGA Live before lock here at Stokastic Pebble Beach Pro-Am. But nevertheless, a lot of money up for grabs. I am Ben Rasa. I am joined, as I always am, by Geoff Ulrich. We're going to get into some golf. We're going to talk about our plays. We're going to build a lineup, talk about our sponsor PrizePicks, and everything in between. We might go off the rails tonight. I'm teetering. It's been a long, long day. Farmers was awesome. Pebble Beach Pro-Am, what do you say? Yay or nay?
I'm feeling it a little bit.
Okay.
The Farmers was good. I enjoyed that event a lot. And that's coming from somewhat like the only person in the freaking Twitter world who didn't bet Max Homa last week.
Even I had him.
I know. And you know what? I'm going to take some beef with you right off the top. You need to explain like who your top picks are so I can, get on them, Ben. For some reason, I didn't know that you'd done that. I should have known. I mean, Toma was a great bet. I just decided to take a little piece of Sanjay instead, but I still had a great week. We got top 5 with Tigala. Sue was up there. Just killed it on PrizePicks with some fading some guys and hitting things like that. So still had a really good week. I just liked the event. I just thought it was really good. Nice change of pace. And you know what? This event can be really hit or miss, but I always like seeing random people get into contention. So I've tricked myself again into thinking this is somehow going to be a good event, but at the very least, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
It's going to be something. Yeah. Last week was definitely good. It should have been great. I had
awful
Saturday.
You should give the whole rundown of what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I won't get into my sob story, but I had a team that really, even my expectations were low, and my God, Benny On led the way. And of course, my villain was Ricky Fowler, and he sunk a 50-footer to streak, and I knew I was in trouble. But that's the breaks. Even though I like him, I am glad. If Sam Ryder would have won, that would have hurt, because I have bet him this year in 2023, and I did not have him last week.
That was weird. I mean, like the event was good, but like seeing Ryder up there for 3 days, that was way out of left field. I don't know if there's a person on he was under 1% owned. Like, what a weird spot for Sam Ryder to just show up and play like hero golf for 3.5 days. So good showing by him. But, I think it probably speaks more to like the double rotation and things like that can happen, but with the 2 courses, but I don't know, man, that was definitely weird to see.
Anything else? I know Rahm is not in this field. I don't think it means much of anything. You can't always win. And it seemed like he obviously after Friday was taking control, and then he faltered. He didn't have a good round, and that happens.
I think it's just a little mental burnout. I mean, it wasn't like he was leading after Friday and he like gave up the lead and he blew up. He was chasing the whole week. That's hard to do. That's way harder, in my opinion. I know people say, oh, like holding the lead is hard, but when you have to just birdie every single hole just to get yourself up to the lead, that takes a lot out of you. And again, like we're talking about a course in Torrey Pines that just is way harder to play too. So playing from behind, I wasn't that shocked. Only other thing, again, I mentioned this on Twitter, but I'm going to throw it out again. Like the odds on Max Homa at the majors, guys, might want to check them out. I do not know why they're still hanging like 50 to 1s up on this guy, but like, if you're looking to invest in someone and throw a little money down, you're not going to find better odds. It's like top 10 player in the world at this point. I don't know what else we need to see from him for them to like re-rate him. He's still not being re-rated on these major championship boards. So just throw that out there.
And, if you don't know it off the top of your head, I'll fill you in, but I believe you probably do. US Open venue this year is right in his backyard
in LA, in California, and he is the new king of California. So even when you're getting down to 35 to 1 for that US Open, I would probably think about taking it because it probably ain't going to get any bigger. So
absolutely. Let's turn the page though, because again, Farmers totally different. It's difficult. It's real. Torrey South is not Monterey Peninsula. Can confirm. Before we go to the 3 courses and Larry the Cable Guy and all the other stuff we got to deal with, let's talk about something good, and that is PrizePicks. At this point, they've been with us for a while now, and when we started the kind of them sponsoring, there were a lot of people that are like, "What the hell? What is PrizePicks?" And we would explain it. I don't really have to say much here, to be honest. PrizePicks has exploded. It's everywhere. You guys know what it is. You're talking about player props, over-unders, different sports. You link them up. You get that payout. Obviously, massive upside, and they've exploded. Like I said, it's just a fantastic site. And if you haven't been over there, this would be the time, because we still have the deal in the link below. You get 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. So all our tools, and you're going to get up to $100 deposit match bonus with PrizePicks when you make that deposit. And it's like I said, Jeff, you mentioned in your intro, you did some good work over there. And in these fields, there's a lot of opportunities to make some money on PrizePicks.
There is. And again, pay attention to the course rotation this week.
Yep.
And like you mentioned, the field, when we get these weaker fields, you're going to get guys who are just maybe, they've been overrated for a round. They're due to hit the skids. Maybe they've already come in and are playing poorly. Look, we got an injury narrative with Matthew Fitzpatrick potentially to take advantage of. Who knows? There's so many things we can take advantage of here. Small greens, green and regulation percentages. Don't forget that. Birdies are better. Will be a little bit up this week. So, but again, we got 4 rounds to go too. If you want to take a wait and see, see how the course is playing, and then maybe hit the birdies are better. But man, I love the PGA product on PrizePicks. And they've, like I said, they've expanded it now last year or so to the fairways and stuff like that. So lots of different ways to take advantage for sure.
Absolutely. And again, what is there to say? It feels like inevitable. I remember, last thing I'll say, when all the DFS started, it was like, you're either on DraftKings or FanDuel. Now everyone's basically on both. It feels inevitable that PrizePicks, we're all going to be playing there. So if you're gonna end up on there, why not take advantage and get the free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum on top of everything? Just a great site. Can't say enough about it. But as much as I like PrizePicks, I hate Larry the Cable Guy. Sorry, but that's what we have to deal with here. 3 courses, 54-hole cut, long rounds. This does mirror in some ways the Amex, which we saw only a couple weeks ago. Is that your mentality? Like kind of thinking Amex centric in terms of what we're dealing with?
Yeah, it's the same type of event, right? I mean, where you're just going to have to take some high variance plays like down below. I mean, it's just the field is going to force you to do that anyways, but it's a 3-course rotation. The one thing that you'd say that makes this a little bit different is I don't think that there's such an obvious split between the 3 courses, where we had like TPC Stadium, then you had like La Quinta, which just played like a complete pitch and putt. The wind can get up on Monterey Peninsula and make it a little bit tougher. It is the easiest course and it almost always rates out. But then you have like Pebble, which some years can actually like yield some really low scores. And some years when the wind gets up, will play just as tough as Spyglass Hill. So there's a little bit more nuance here. I also think like the fact we're on POA greens, we're not in a stadium course, it does help. Like the guys who really love the West Coast, like you get some real West Coast specialists who every year it just seems like, Streelman, Ches isn't here, but he's always in there. Like you just get a laundry list of guys who come here and just play well. So more course experience this week than the Amex for sure. That's one thing that you really need, I think, emphasize. And then, but otherwise, we still got a rotation. Lots of crazy things are going to happen. You're going to see some names who you're like, wow, this guy's in the field and he is like 1 stroke off a lead. So.
Yeah, it's, again, you're dealing with a lot of things that are very difficult and are one-offs. When we look back in the year, these will be a blip on the radar. Yep. I don't think it alters my builds. Something that I always come across, it's like, well, even if your guy gets cut, you're getting 54 holes. You still got to go for 6 of 6 to seriously have a chance. The impact won't be as bad if you're sporting a 5 of 6. You can hold on a little longer, but at the same time, we're out to get good golfers. When you look at the courses, I mean, it seems like off the tee wouldn't be, at Torrey South, you better be able to drive it. You got to keep it out of that thick stuff. Here, It's to me more about, can you lean on your irons? Can you roll it at times? I don't think certainly length is a prerequisite to excel here.
No, definitely not. This course, again, if you haven't played DFS here, you just need a refresher. This course, it's technical. It's the epitome of technical. There's dog legs. The first hole, it's a short par 4, but you can't take driver on it because if you hit driver, it's just automatically into the rough because it's a short dog leg. You either hit it into the tree or you'd hit it or you'd end up like way in the rough with no shot to the green. So everybody clubs down. And there's a bunch of holes like that. There's a couple par 5s that are like that as well. So power here almost more than any other course gets de-emphasized. And it really comes down to irons. Are you having a really good week around the greens, especially if it gets windy? And of course, the putter, which, Hoagie gained 5 strokes last year. I don't even remember who won the year before. They gained a bunch of strokes. Everyone gained strokes putting. Nick Taylor, when he won, gained like 6 strokes putting. So got to get hot with that club. But, if you are a consistent iron player, you're going to put yourself in really good position. That's the main thing. That's the thing we can control and look at. Really just look at those guys with short irons, like 150, 125 yards and in.
Be Daniel Berger.
Berger actually was like the one guy who I think he just killed it that week when he gained like 8 strokes ball striking. The
only reason I remember that is that's one of the many times that I bet Maverick McNeely to win a golf tournament. And he came in second. Maybe this will be the week, probably, because it feels like he's getting a lot of steam out there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the golfers. Let's talk about the top tier. Jordan Spieth, Victor Hovland, Matthew Fitzpatrick, defending champ Tom Hoagie. You said to me right before we went on air, quote, I stopped paying attention for a couple hours and something happens. And what happened? You log on DraftKings, you'll see a big Q tag next to Matthew Fitzpatrick. I got to start there. What do you make of that?
Yeah, this is bad timing in an event where we needed Matthew Fitzpatrick. We really needed him to step up this week and just be that guy, where I think the field was ready to get on Jordan Spieth a little bit more. They were going to roster Hoagie. Hovland's everyone's favorite. And Matthew Fitzpatrick just set up so nicely, great around the green, great putter, started well, and now I have no idea. I don't know what to tell you, man. He's got a neck injury. He says it's okay to play through it, but we're going to have 7-hour rounds here, and there's a lot of risk involved. So let's break this down a couple ways, though. The last time we had a situation like this actually wasn't that far ago. It was Xander.
Yep.
I think the injury with Xander was far more significant, and I think it was a long-term thing. He wanted to give it a go because he was already there and he needed the pay and probably, paycheck, obviously starting and stuff. I think Fitzpatrick is more likely to be okay here. I think there's, if Schauffele was 50-50, Fitzpatrick's probably like 80-20, if I had to guess. He's probably 80% where he could be okay. He could feel better after round 1, get a little treatment. He makes the cut. And all of a sudden, like Sunday, he's charting up the leaderboard. So I would be more apt in this field with far less pivots to take a shot here, because this is definitely, like we used to never get Q tags in golf, and now we're getting Q tags, and that is going to really help drive the ownership. You saw how low Schauffele got, and I mean, obviously it wasn't low enough, but it was like 2% owned in those tournaments, and I think you could see something similar here. Which, again, we don't have 20 elite golfers; we have 3. So I'm more apt to take a shot with this and roll the dice, if I'm being honest.
So the big thing that I think is the trickiest part, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that I'm not. Xander, the whole time, it was just like, he's hurt. Is he going to play? We're going to see. And he was never popular. Matthew Fitzpatrick, currently, before we knew all this, was one of the most popular plays in this entire tournament. Yep. And now it's balancing how much, obviously it's not going to help his ownership. He's clearly going to go down. Is he going to be unpopular? Because if he's 25 or 30%, I would gladly say maybe he's hurt and I'll go somewhere else. If he comes down to 10%, now I'd buy and say maybe it's nothing. I think you got to try to project that. It's very difficult to know, though, because Xander never had that aspect of it.
No. And that's where I think the Q tag comes in, like, important. Yep. Like, if this was, again, 2 years ago, I'd say, just stay away. Cause like, I don't know. Like, some people won't even know. I mean, like if this has been a week where I wasn't doing a show and I was just like, I'm going to bed early, I probably wouldn't even have known.
Yep.
So, Fitzpatrick. But though, I mean, people are going to see it. So it's tough because he could still definitely pop up with 20% ownership. There's just nowhere else to go this week. If you want to build out lineups like this, you'd have to go, you'd have to dip down into the 9K range, which was significantly, worse golfers. I don't know. I think the Q tag will help keep the ownership down, but I like you said, I wouldn't be expecting like 3% ownership. It's probably at best, we're looking at like 8 to 10. with a possibility that he could still be like 20% owned.
Yeah, I think he's still going to be popular, and I'm not going to let him define this. I thought I was going to maybe ladder him fully. I'll probably ease off that. I think he's a fine bet. It's more about where do you want to start if it's not him. Now, Jordan Spieth's got all the course history in the world. He's the most expensive player. You've got Hovland right there. He's another great player. Around the green's always an issue. And then you've got Tom Hoagie, who is getting, I think, a bump, but he's a good golfer. And in this field, someone's got to fill the void. Besides Fitzy, where are you drawing north of 10K?
Yeah, I mean, we had two options here, but Hovland is, I mean, I really like Hovland. He's working on the short game. You know, is this the point where he puts it all together? I mean, it's clearly like a thing for him, but you know, he's been testing new equipment. That's part of the reason why he skipped last week as well. I mean, you look at it and you kind of just think this is just like he's going to be out there trying, but this also just feels like an event he's playing to dial himself in for other events. Mm-hmm. Spieth at this point, like these are the events where Spieth gets his wins. I mean, like he's probably not going to be winning when the fields are elite now. I mean, I just don't know if he's up there with like the Morikawas, the Rahms, if he can really hold with those guys anymore. He wants to stay in like the top 20. He's got to win these events. It's a big week for Jordan Spieth in a lot of ways. So I definitely lean Spieth. Even if the ownership was somehow in Spieth's favor, I'd still lean Spieth. I would just ignore the leverage or whatever and just roll there. I think this is a week where you got to pay up for him now. I liked Fitzpatrick before, but you know, that's gone kind of. And
yep.
So
I totally agree. It is kind of a bummer for Spieth in the sense that he's going to allocate extra ownership because of this situation. There's no doubt about it. I just really like the spot for him. He got reps in Hawaii. He didn't play overly well, but he got reps. He's super comfortable here. We've seen that even last year. Like you look at his year, say what you want. He was second here. He won Heritage. Like this guy, he knows what he's doing at the events that he knows what he's doing. I think it's a real debate on how much he will factor in majors. That's a different discussion for a different time, but there's no doubting to me he's the class of the field when you get to this type of event. But I want to ask you, because I think it's going to be a very popular build. This is not Jon Rahm and Rory up top. The win equity to me is much more dispersed than we've seen even at like last week with Farmers. Seamus, Putnam, Maverick, Kuchar. How low do you go? Do you have interest in, say, taking 2 or 3 9K guys and putting them together?
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, look, if we're, you know, with Fitzpatrick out, I think that you now have to consider. And look, we have some, like, these names are not names that you're like, wow, what, like, obviously, why is Andrew Putnam 97? And these are things that you're not going to see. But we have guys in Power and Putnam. They have both won events fields against fields like this when they are sub 3,000 in the betting odds, sub 30-1 in the betting odds. They have both won events like that. So yes, they're not elite players, but they are players who are very good at a couple things. They're both fantastic putters around the green, can light it up with their irons when they get hot, and they're confident in fields like this. I don't have a problem with either of those guys starting lineups, because I think that, you know, once you get down here, Justin Rose, I mean, look, he's veteran. I don't know what he's doing. McNeely is good too, but I also still will say, like, I still think he's like one of the most overrated players just from a DFS salary standpoint. And then you've got like a Kuchar, another veteran. I don't know. Is he going to like turn it on at some point? Don't really want to rely on that. Damon hasn't played since like the November. I like Keith Mitchell, but like Putnam and Power, this is where they make their money too. And in a lot of ways, I won't say they're priced appropriately, but those are the guys I would not mind paying up for outside of the 10K range.
Certainly not going to push back on. I honestly think that Putnam is even a one and done candidate, which is shocking to say. But this guy, he hasn't missed a cut since that was June of 2022.
17 in a row.
And this is a great course for him. This is the type of course he's weak off the tee. His putter, I know that Taylor Montgomery's in a class of his own, and you've got Denny McPutts, who I'll talk about in a second. Andrew Putnam is a serious putter himself. So you've got that. I'm going to get into my 9K guys, but I want to drop a couple or answer a couple. We got some real good questions from chat. first, and he's sporting a good-looking badge. Samuel, any salary advantage at all this week, leaving 1K plus? I'm totally fine with that. I don't think you have to, but if you have a lineup you like, don't hesitate to leave plenty of money on the table.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like if you're not going to use the 10K guys, that's it becomes, I don't want to say easier to do it. You shouldn't be like going out of your way to do it, but if you like the build, I mean, you're going to get more builds where you're like, I like this, and so just naturally it'll come. If it comes naturally, I wouldn't have a problem doing it. This is the kind of week, the kind of field that you do those things for sure.
No doubt. Mike H, Vic around the green, concerns with small greens. I'd say yes, but at the same time, don't forget this is a pro-am. They're not going to set up the pin location. Getting up and down will be easier here than it would be at a normal event. So I do think it kind of balances out. I don't really like Hovland just for various reasons relative to the other guys as an elite player, but I'm not overly worried that he'll be punished around the green just because, again, this is a pro-am.
Yeah, I like the best thing to say about Hovland. I'm not projecting for a miscutter, and he's also going to hit a ton of greens and hit a lot of fairways. So really solid floor. I just think that, I'm not like for the betting, being the betting favorite and stuff. I mean, I'm not betting him. Like I like Spieth's upside better. That's about the best thing I could say.
And then this is great. It's not even really a question. Well, I guess it's a question, but Humble 0721, first time into DFS golf. Any tips? Well, first of all, welcome aboard.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Everyone in chat already told you the deal. It's a roller coaster. It gets wild. You got to make the cut. You got to do two things. This is not who to pick, but to me, you got to win the tournament twice. You got to make the cut. You got to get all your guys through, and then you got to get lucky on the weekend. So don't be afraid to experiment, wade into the course, and just realize it's a really high variance sport. Week to week, things change because you're playing different venues.
Yeah. Only thing I'll add is, don't try not to get too comfortable and just look for guys who, finish 50th every week, especially in these big fields. You got to take some chances and look for guys who can really spike. And but Ben's right. You got to win twice. It's tough. And as he found out last week, I mean, everything can be looking good one day and it'll come crashing down real quick. It's
like, oh, well, I can't lose that many, but 38 holes in, my team had -5. Very, very disturbing. That's the thing. You can go backwards. This isn't like the NFL where it's like, well, I got my points. But enough about that. I want to drill down specifically to Denny McCarthy, because to me, he belongs in the conversation with Seamus and Putnam. I know he's not playing fantastic golf, but he's made 6 straight cuts. His off the tee game is solid. We know what the putter can do. And he's shown, again, some experience at this course. He was 12th last year, even with losing a couple strokes on the approach. I feel like this is a course for him. When I look at his best finishes on tour, Honda, Bermuda, Corrales. I know some of those are just nonsense tournaments, but I actually think this is a good setup for Denny McCarthy. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, again, not a player who doesn't hit it well off the tee, but even if you're a little bit inaccurate around Pebble, like, again, we mentioned this already. This isn't the US Open. Like, they're not going to be growing the rough 10 feet for the amateurs, because then the rounds would take 14 hours instead of 7. So McCarthy's absolutely fine here. And I think you look at this range, talked about Putnam and Power, but I'm absolutely fine I'm actually fine bypassing McNeely this week. I've you know what? I've kind of just taken the anti-Maverick McNeely stance. I'm just going to make that my thing now. But I kind of like just bypassing those 3 players and getting down to McCarthy and Keith Mitchell. I mean, we'll talk about Mitchell in a sec, but like Denny, what do we need from him? That the round the green game and the putter isn't going to be terrible. At the very worst, it's going to be like slightly above average. That's pretty much a bad week for him. If it spikes, great. You could get a top 20. If his irons show up and he gets some confidence there, which he does tend to do, he's not like a terrible iron player. We could be talking about a guy who absolutely can win this tournament. So I like McCarthy at 92. I think Mitchell definitely brings a better floor. I think he's more apt to top 20 for you. Gained 4 strokes ball striking at the Amex. He just couldn't find the putter, but this guy eats up short courses. He's 5th in strokes gained total on courses under 7,200 yards. I know, like, we think about Keith Mitchell, we think about Bermuda, but he has learned how to putt on POA. 6th at the Travelers, gained a bunch of strokes here putting last season. Keith Mitchell's in my bets, and I really like him this week. And like I said, I'm happy to take him or Denny down there at 92 and bypass those mid 9 guys.
Yeah, Keith Mitchell is certainly, as we kind of transition, we're still, I'm going to put him in that top tier. We'll get to the mid range in just a second. But to me, Keith Mitchell is a guy you have to almost, I don't want to say separate what you see, but like he's a long hitter off the tee. But the forced club down benefits him. And you can look. I mean, Honda, Corrales, the same courses I just mentioned for Denny McCarthy are at the top of Keith Mitchell's list. And I think it's because he is forced to not be overly aggressive. And he's still going to gain strokes off the tee. It's not like, oh, now he will lose them. It'll just be different. And if you sync that up with a putter that can certainly spike, I have no problem with Killer Keith here. I even think in a week like this, you could start with him and go super balanced.
Yeah. Sure.
It's disturbing, but it's true. All right. Let's get to the mid-range. Let's talk about what we got going on here. I do want to say, obviously, me and Geoff, we're always referencing the ownership and the tools and the pro plays and things like that. Always want to just remind you guys, the link in the description has all the good stuff from PrizePicks to what else we've got. And we do have that free trial. You can come right in and check out our stuff. You just go in there, check it out, register, click those links. Very, very easy. If you're looking to get in for free and test drive some of these things, it's all available in those links. Let's talk about the AK range, though. Pendrith, Detry, Smalley, Ben Griffin, who, say what you want, but 9 straight made cuts. The numbers do not lie there.
Yep.
Where are you going here? Because to me, this is a very difficult range to navigate.
Yeah, especially are we talking about the whole, we're talking about the whole AK range here, right? We're going to bring in, like the top to me is about guys you may want to take chances with. Taylor Pendrith has looked horrible in a 2 stars now. I'm just going to write him off for the time being. Maybe his putter gets hot again, but like he was so wild last week. And even when he was hitting fairways, he really wasn't that good at anything else. So to me, I kind of ignoring him. I'm also ignoring Joel Damon for the simple fact of the rust, and people are still going to play him. So I'm crossing those guys off. I don't mind going back to Detry this week, Thomas Detry at 88. I think a lot of people are going to look at him, hasn't played the course, and just kind of be like, I don't need to play him. It's a very consistent player. We're talking about made cut rate, 10 in a row to start his PGA Tour career. In a field like this, you could easily make a case that Thomas Detry should be 9,800 for his career accomplishments, for what he's done. And certainly, like from a talent standpoint, that's not a hot take. So I like him in that range. If you're going to take a shot, maybe pivot off the Damon chalk, that's where I would go. I wrote him up this week too as a nice pivot off of Damon. So you can find that up on Stokastic, but that's kind of the player I'm looking at in the 8K range. But this range for me is all about, it's really just all about the guys in the low 8K range, the low eights. I mean, I like specifically, I like 3 players, but I really like 2 of them. And that's Lipsky and Mullinex. I think Mullinex, exact same thing we just talked about with, he was okay last week, T31. Little wild off the tee, but that's not, just like Mitchell, it's not going to affect him. He's been top 15. He's played this event 5 times, never missed the cut. He's had top 10 finishes at TPC Southwind, another shorter technical venue. He'll club down. It'll help him. His irons were fine last week. His putter was good. Mullinex is underrated in this field again. And he's played well here before. So Lipsky also, I really like Lipsky this week. Excellent short iron player. He could eat up this course. Both those guys, really like the prices. Yeah,
Lipsky, I have no issues with him. He's playing great golf. He got cut at Amex, which again, these events are just bizarre. You need to shoot like 9 over in 54 holes to get there. He lost 4 strokes putting on the strokes gain data that we can see from that week. That means nothing to me. I do want to ask you though, because you named some guys and I have no issues with any of them. Are you indifferent to Ben Griffin? Do you think this is a week to maybe cash in those dividends if you've been playing him? What do you do with this guy?
I mean, I just think at 8,600, he's just overpriced. And again, it's a crazy week. I don't want to overpay for someone. Like if Ben Griffin shows up and he loses like 2 strokes on these POA greens, like you're done and you've paid 8,600. So, if you're going hyper balanced, And, this is probably a good way to build a really unique lineup, but you want to load up on this range and like maybe start with Mitchell or something like we said. Yeah, maybe you go Ben Griffin as a second guy in, maybe use Detry as well. But for me, I look at him, and it's not that I'm not sold, but he's not necessarily like exploding, doing anything well. He's putting extremely consistently. The irons are good. They're not great. And then it really just comes down to where he is. You've got guys underneath him, Lipsky, who does a lot of the same things well. Mullinix, who again has shown a lot of upside against different fields and elite fields. And then even Nick Taylor at 8,000. So I just think he's a little bit overpriced. I think we kind of buying the top, and, can't play everyone in this range, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, to me, he's the type of guy, if you think that, and I do think there's a real chance that this guy is actually just really good, and we're going to look back and say he never should have been in the eights because he's gained 5 straight off the tee and with the irons, then I think you should keep buying. If not, you have amazing pivots. I want to ask you about one more of those pivots, though. You've mentioned a couple of guys that are Eurocentric in terms of getting most of their starts, or at least how I know them, is in Europe. And that would be Detry, and that would be Lipsky. But Dean Burmeister is another guy who has made the jump, is South African. Yeah. He's come over. He's made 8 of 9 cuts. The guy can't putt at all, and he's still finding the weekend. Does the putter cap him, or is this a course maybe we should buy on him?
He is pretty interesting, I admit. He was kind of terrible in the last couple starts, but he did turn it around a little bit last week. And he looked pretty good, like, to be honest. Like he was kind of in the zone just in terms of like hitting his irons. He's really big off the tee. That doesn't necessarily help him this week, but he's played a lot of quirky courses over in Europe. So, if I'm going to take a shot there, I'll take a shot with him over Kisner. I'll put it that much. And again, if I'm not buying up for Ben Griffin, you could certainly use Burmeister there. So yeah, I kind of faded him last week, admittedly, but having watched him play, and I've bet on Burmeister in Europe before. Like, I know what I'm getting into. Oh, yeah. He's a pretty good player. Like, he is. He's got a lot of good qualities, and as you mentioned, like, the putter can hold him back. But if that club shows up, he could, in this kind of field, he could end up T5 for the week. So he's a very volatile player, probably the perfect kind of guy you'd say GPP play. Wouldn't be thinking about him in a cash game. It's the first time playing the event, but there's certainly in this kind of field, the idea that much like Detry, he's potentially just a little bit underpriced.
I thought he would be more sneaky, and that's really my biggest apprehension. We have him north of 10%, and that to me, in a range that's wide open, is not great, because he's a fine player. He's played a lot of golf in Europe. Reminds me, Ryan Fox is like that. These guys can hone in. They don't have to bomb it. And I think that will serve him well, but I would rather play Taylor Moore or Lipsky right below him. Last guy in the range, and I know I'm going to get myself into trouble. EVR looked great at Amex. He looked fantastic. He gained everywhere. Is it something? Is it nothing? When I say never, I never get EVR right.
No. Because he's just like, he's the white whale. He's the player you want to target every week. And every week that people target him, he becomes Eric. He goes from being Eric Van Rooyen to Eric Van Ruin.
Yes, he does.
He will ruin your lineup. I have no idea what he's going to do. I have no idea. He is, from a setup standpoint, he can drill his irons, and he's actually like a pretty good putter. Like, he's not the most consistent putter, but he can get really hot with that club. So at 8K, if he was 77, 75, I'd be more apt to take a shot with him. But man, I don't know. Like that. I don't even know. I don't even know what to say. Like, because I don't want to say I want to see more, because every time you say that, he just draws you in further. But he's a very talented player. He's a very talented player. Just realize what you're getting into with him. We talked about the ownership with Burmeister. What is I think that's 2%. The biggest. How much?
2%.
Yeah. Okay. So that is the, player aside and all that, that makes him a pretty attractive play. That's really what it comes down to. He's a pure ownership play. Certainly a player who's capable of beating a field. He's just like Putnam. He won the Barracuda against a similar field. So it's just how much risk you want to take on. But I certainly like the ownership projection that we're getting with him.
Yeah, you got to know what you're getting into. But at 2%, I
Yeah.
will donate with EVR. I don't mind the splash. I think that the talent he has shown. We just mentioned Lipsky and Burmeister and Detry and guys like that. EVR has shown in fields like that he can play with them and play better than them. That guy's got wins.
Yeah.
Now, I think he's much more likely to miss the cut. But I also think if you don't want to play him, maybe you just sprinkle on him for like a top 5. I don't mind that because I think he does have that type of equity and his bad is real bad. So shout out to EVR.
Has he played this event before? Let's find out.
EVR, has he
I feel
played
like
this?
He might have actually.
Oh, God. Hopefully he hasn't. I don't know. He's played
Did he play the US Open here? He's never played the Pro-Am. He did play the US Open here in 2019 and finished 43rd. He gained 7.8 strokes ball striking that week.
Typical.
And lost 5 strokes around the green and putting.
Maybe it's but you know what? I will say he just played the Amex, and he gained strokes putting there. That was a while ago. Maybe he's figured out some POA situation. There are plenty of guys though, as we work down into the pure mid range. That is the 7K range. I think it starts to drop off, but I'm not going to say there's no names. Obviously, Robbie Shelton has popped up here and there over the weeks. Davis Riley's starting to get down there. Your guy. I know he's a Bama guy, but maybe he can get it done in California. Will Gordon, Kitayama, another Euro. Russell Knox. Obviously, I'll have something to say on that. What do you do in the 7K range?
Yeah, 7K range. A lot of players with just, it doesn't feel like there's, it feels like people are kind of, from what I saw early in the week, we're going to Will Gordon a lot here. I don't know if that's changed a lot. It looks like, he's still kind of popping. Nick Hardy, another name that I think people are going on. Looks like people are buying into Scott Stallings. This is a range for me where I want to play like the ownership like scenario, but I just don't know how good the pivots are. I mean, like most of these guys are having a little bit of flat ownership, but even Kitayama, who I do like I bet him this week. I think it's like 70, 80 to 1. That's a fine number for a guy who finished runner up 3 times last year and has played on the West Coast, grew up on the West Coast. That's where I would go personally, but like he's still 10% owned. I'm almost fine, to be honest, bypassing this range altogether if possible. Not really in love with anyone. And I think if anything, I would be looking down to Knox and Kitayama, who have lower ownership than a lot of the kind of chalk in this range. So no one really standing out to me. I'm certainly not going to pay up for a chalky Scott Stallings. I know he's played well on the West Coast and that, but hasn't looked as good. And I do like Kitayama. And again, I mean, Knox just makes a ton of sense on these courses, especially when he's playing well. So
I really I know Knox gets people in trouble, particularly me, but this is the perfect course for him. He's shown that. It's not that I think that, I know that. Just where he excels. He's got good irons, short irons. He's not a long hitter. Putter comes and goes. He's, last 5 appearances here, 4 cuts, 3 inside the top 20, 1 top 10. He just churns out good finishes at these type of events.
For a player who gains as many strokes as he does on approach, it's going to happen again. Just like it happened for Henley. Russell Knox will find a week where it starts to click, and he maybe it's a runner up or a playoff, maybe it's a win, but like at some point this guy's going to win again. He's won twice. He's a very, very good player. He lost a ton of confidence with the putter, but like that will swing back at some point. And these are the kind of setups. It feels a little bit like Siwoo at the Sony. It's just like, this is the kind of setup where he really plays well. And I got like 90 or 100 to 1 on them at like Monday morning. And it's like, it was just a no-brainer. It's just like, it's Pebble Beach. This field sucks. Russell Knox is one of the best short iron players in the world. If he putts well, I'm going to win. So
one travel
probably won't putt well, but
yeah. No, I listen, I hear you. This is the type, there are two, I've said this a lot. To me, and this is painting with very broad strokes, but I kind of envision the PGA Tour, there's 3 types of buckets. There's guys that suck, that are either on, exemptions or whatnot, that really doesn't matter where they play. They have no form.
Right.
There's elites. It doesn't really matter where they play because they're elite. If they bring their A game, they can win. And then there are guys that make it through taking advantage of the courses that suit their game. And when they play 5 events, they know they basically have no chance barring an outlier. And then they have 5 events that they say, this is where I'm going to get my FedEx Cup points. This is my perfect skill set, because if it was just a short iron competition, I can play with Rahm. I can't play with him everywhere. Russell Knox and Pebble Beach to me are one of those. Andrew Putnam and Pebble Beach are to me one of those. Like that's kind of how I envision the mid-range. And I start to really lean on the skill set when you get here. Bo Hostler is here. Benny On, who shot 11 over on Saturday, is here. He was playing great golf right before that. Matthew Neesmith, Justin Sue, who you've mentioned in recent weeks, Grayson Sig, are any of these guys moving the dial for you?
Yeah. So again, I mean, a lot of, and like, you know, we were on a low owned Justin Sue last week. But you know, all these players are not, unfortunately, they're not going to be, you know, like surprises. Like you're not going to be tricking someone by playing even Justin Sue this week, but like Matthew Neesmith, who's missed 3 cuts, trending with like 15% ownership. So this is just the event here. Like you're going to have to eat some chalk. So like I do like Sue. I think he's finding his game. By no means do I think Justin Sue is like a must play, but I'm going to keep riding it. It's a West Coast, you know, I think in a lot of ways, Justin Sue, a little bit like a poor man's Victor Hovland right now. His irons are really starting to play well. He struggles a little bit around the greens, but he can get hot with the putter too. And he's just finding his way. So I don't mind that, but I mean, I'd be more apt to take a little bit of risk down here. I just don't really know who I necessarily want to do that with. Callum Tarrant did stand out to me as someone who, you know, I'm a little bit surprised that people aren't on him. I was 25th last week, you know, 2nd at the RSM. What we've seen from him is strong approach play, a guy who likes, you know, like easier courses, bunch of top 10s, all on easier courses. I think Tarrant is probably the guy I would look to down here if you're looking for someone who just, you know, like I don't think many people are going to roster, and because I think the ownership is going to be a little bit spread, but it's going to be spread over like 3 or 4 players, and they're all going to kind of, you know, be popular.
Speaking of potentially guys that will be popular relative to the range, when you put out some tweets, and you should follow, of all the people watching, follow that man at the Fantasy Grind, and follow me while you're at it at JazzRaz DFS, of course. You put out some things about trends for the winter and whatnot, and I've seen a couple of those this week. And I'll tell you what, Troy Merritt checks a ton of those boxes, and he is someone that seems to love this course and love this place. Do you have interest in Troy Merritt? Because he's in the same price range as Callum Tarrant, as Scott Piercy, as the, you know, he's in the lower 7K range.
I mean, again, a lot of these guys I think have very similar kind of, you know, win equity ranges this week. And this is where if I'm playing this range, and like this is basically for DFS especially, I'm going to let the ownership projections on Stokastic make some of these decisions. To me, like there isn't a big difference between, say, Troy Merritt, Neesmith, some of these other guys. Like, yeah, I mean, Neesmith's a better iron player, but like, you know, Merritt makes it up with his putter. They both do something well. So like for me, Merritt is, you know, coming off a bunch of missed cuts. I don't think he's ever someone that like, you know, the field is going to necessarily like go crazy with, and he is trending lower here. So I don't mind it at all. I think he's fine to work in. And again, like you may even get like half the ownership on Merritt over Matthew Neesmith. It's not even that I don't like Neesmith. It's just, I think that he's got similar flaws to Merritt, and they could both spike. And I don't want to guess. I want to take that guesswork out of it and just let the ownership projections, you know, kind of make the decision for me. I will say this: if you want a really low owned play and someone who would normally be, I actually bet, I don't know why I bet him, but I did. He was like 150 to 1. I know he's coming off a bunch of injuries. Danny Willett.
I didn't know he was in the field, so that's interesting.
So he was dealing with a shoulder injury. I legitimately don't think he could swing a club for a bit.
You're making a hell of a case so far. Yes. Okay.
So but he's obviously over it. Played the Amex, got in 3 rounds. He was terrible there. Absolutely terrible. But like this guy around the green, he's got everything you want. He was 12th here at the US Open in 2019. He's a great iron player. He has won on tracks like this over in Europe. And my God, like he just finished second on the PGA Tour on the West Coast, like in September. So it's a real risk. Like this guy may not be in enough form to do anything, but man, he sets up well. He's really good around the greens. He is a player who really, when he gets his short irons going, he won't hit it to 5 feet. He'll hit it to 2 feet. So just wanted to throw that out there. Like I said, it is a huge risk, but if you want like a 2% play there, you could think about it. I don't know. I'm probably way too early on that call, but
I thought you might go to, I mentioned this guy last week as a super sleeper. And you know what? He did his job. Scott Piercy, he was 1% owned last week, and now he's only going to be a couple percent owned. He came in 31st at the Farmers. He gained 5 strokes on the approach. I think that Scott Piercy, who flipped the putter last week, could be a name to maybe continue to buy. He plays this event every year, loads of experience. It's not the worst at 2%.
No, he's one of those players who you fit in. Like he always comes here, and he's played well here before. He's been close. To getting himself in contention. So 7,200. Yeah. Again, if you're using the ownership, these are the kind of players you can pick out just by having those projections. I don't even have to know. I can just be like, okay, Piercy's, half the ownership of, whatever, Neesmith, Hosler. Yeah, I'm going to play him. He played well last week. Really like it.
I'm with you. You gotta roll the dice a little in this range. You're certainly there is no chalk in the salary savers bucket. Let's get there now. I will say, even in a weak tournament, we got a lot of people in here, and it is so appreciated. If you want to help us out, just click that thumbs up. Takes, I don't know, I would say 30 seconds, but that's a lie. It really takes a millisecond, and we do appreciate it. Shows the algorithm, as Lofty would say, that we know what we're doing here at Stokastic. And again, I will just say one more time, links in the description from PrizePicks, our sponsor, to BetMGM if you're in a state with legal betting. Let me get that out real quick. 1 free month of Stochastics Plus Platinum, that same deal, and $1,000 risk-free bet when you register at BetMGM Sportsbook. So if you are looking to get some promos, get some bonuses, that is the easiest way to do it. You do have to be 21. Be responsible. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Now, 6K range. I don't know if you need to dive crazy because I think the win equity up top sucks. But do you have names in the 6K range that you're comfortable with?
I do, unfortunately.
Oh my.
I think you'll like my first one anyways. Peter Malnati at 6,800.
Yeah, I like that guy.
Like quite a bit. Yeah. Everything just makes sense about Malnati this week. When you see a shorter hitter like him play well at Torrey Pines, you always got to perk up a little bit, and you got to like the things he did. Gained multiple strokes on the approach. He's a good putter, so he's always going to be okay with that club. But, he's got room for improvement there. Everything for him just gets enhanced this week. If he hits his irons a little bit better, he can really get it rolling here. And he's going to have more short irons. So, yeah, he's played this event before, top 12 before, fits that nice trend about, the experience factor. He is absolutely someone, if you're just like sitting here looking for a bet late at night, and you want someone 150 to 1 or bigger, that is 100% a guy who I think could get himself in the mix. He's got a lot of self-belief. One of those players who he knows what he is. He knows what kind of game he has, and he'll go out and just, fire. He's had some stretches where, he's been really close to getting like multiple wins. And I think in this kind of field with him, maybe starting to feel it again. Yeah, I actually really like it. It's a little scary how much I like him this week, to be honest, but yeah, that'd be my top play down there.
It's actually a perfect segue into a question we had from chat. From Anthony was saying, who's the cheapest guy you would play on FanDuel? I think it's probably about that range for me. You've got a guy like Peter Malnati at 7,900 over there. Lucas Glover 7,900. Marty Dew is 7,900. James Hahn is flat 8. I'm not sure I would go lower than that. I'm not saying there's no names down there, but to me, you'd be best served landing in that range. And Peter Malnati is another guy. I sound like a broken record. How does this guy maintain on tour? He takes advantage of his opportunities. He's not going to win at some of these monster courses because he's an elite short game player, elite putter. I don't think he can hang around, off the tee. Now he survived last week. He bled strokes off the tee, but his irons were just ridiculous. So
Yep.
I get it. I'm going to go a completely different direction, same range. I thought that Marty Dew played really good golf for 54 holes last week, and then he completely unraveled on Saturday. He finished 62nd at Farmers. He's made 4 of 5 cuts, and he's done nothing with it. But he's also lost strokes putting in all 5 of those events, and not just a little. He has lost 3 or more strokes putting in 5 straight events, and he still made 4 cuts. To me, you can take that 2 ways. 1, his putter is obviously broken, but 2, even a flat 0 round with the putter is going to pay dividends. And he gained strokes putting in his appearance here before. So I'm optimistic that Marty Dew, just as a talent play, can find us 72 holes this week.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's 6,900 in this field. It's been a struggle for him to get like those high finishes. Like,
yeah,
but you do have to give a guy credit for he does some things really good off the tee, and he's been getting around the weekend. So eventually that's going to pay off with something. Again, this is a pretty big drastic change in field too. So I don't hate it. I mean, everyone else I'm about to bring up is it's just an eye roll. So I don't know. We can start listing off guys.
Jimmy Walker. We've had a couple of Jimmy Walker questions.
Yeah.
I don't really see it, to be honest, but if you're, he's going to be 1% owned.
He loves his Pebble, but
he had 8 strokes with the short game last week.
I just like Jimmy Walker is just in a place where you just can't really trust him at this point in his career. Like it's unfortunate. He's had the Lyme disease, taking time off.
Limes will get
he could do anything this week from finish second to like open with a 77, and it wouldn't shock me. So Walker's okay. Sung Yul No, any interest? Good putters, played here lots. I don't know if he's ever missed a cut here actually, but he's had a couple high finishes early in his career. He's playing okay. Bleed strokes off the tee that's not gonna matter that much. James Hahn, who apparently just hates the PGA Tour, yet he plays on it and makes millions of dollars. Well, he doesn't anymore. He makes like hundreds of thousands, but he could, because his irons are coming back. His long games look good. Hahn is pretty interesting, man. If his putter comes to play, like what we've seen from James Hahn over his career is when he gets in contention, he really gets in contention. So I got to say, like, I'm pretty interested in him this week. I threw him on the betting card. Didn't cost much, that's for sure. But yeah, he is a valid play down here for me. And, I threw out like Sung Yul No, but Hana's legitimate top 5 upside. I mean, he really does. He's struck it well in a couple events. He loves the West Coast and he loves this event. So.
Well, that's a fact. There's no doubt. I think you're dealing with a couple. Sung Yul No is a hard evaluation because he's someone, and it's not like this just happened. He was a pretty solid player, and then he had to, he went for his military commitment, and that really is tough. We saw that with Sengmin Bay as well.
Yeah.
James Hahn though is one of those guys. If you run stuff by made cut percentage and things, he will be nowhere. If you run it by top 5 percentage, he would pop every time in the 6K range because randomly twice a year, he comes from the clouds. I'm always going to be blurred by when he won Wells Fargo. I know it was a long time ago. He had missed like 20 cuts in a row before that, and then he just won. It beat Ricky. Anyway.
No, he beat Castro.
Roberto Castro. Yeah, that was an insane week. I remember that so vividly. Yeah, Roberto Castro. Shout out to Roberto
I miss
Castro.
betting Roberto Castro. That guy's talented too, but oh well.
Well, we're going to build a lineup in just a second, but I do want to ask you about one more name. Right. And I really, I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about this guy, but I've seen more than a couple people ask about Marcel Siem.
Okay.
What's this guy's deal? Because to me, I don't really see it, but maybe there's more to that story.
He's just a Euro grinder, man. I mean, I can't even remember what this guy does well, but he has been a consistent player over on the DP World Tour. He's 42 now, so that's not shocking because I think I was betting this guy in like 2015. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm a little weird that he's over here, but he's a player. He can play. Like he's had his moments over on that tour. So I have no idea what to expect. But this is the kind of event where, you look in that range, 6,500, Seam has a lot more experience than some of these guys, and he's definitely like had his moments, like I said, on the Euro Tour. I don't know. He's probably had a couple wins. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a pretty obscure player to be in here, to be honest.
Really strange.
But you've got your choice. You can take the offbeat Euro talent, or you can try and pick the week that this is where David Lingmer's putter shows up, or Bryce Garnett's putter shows up. I actually don't hate Garnett here, to be honest. But yeah, it's fine down here. I mean, I don't think that there's any clear, like, big play that you're going to be missing if you use him over someone else, but I don't have any intel, like huge inside information to what he's been up to recently. I just know that he's a player who has made a pretty good living over on the Euro Tour, and, talent wise, yeah, he may actually be a better than some of these guys in his range. I think I feel safe saying that.
I think it's, I mean, I think it's a pretty unnecessary range. Certainly the tools that we have behind kind of try to identify this stuff, and nothing really jumped out. And I think that's because of the lack of win equity up top. I'll say this. If I had to take, and believe me, I'm not trying to play this guy, and I don't plan to. If I had to take a complete shot in the dark in this range, I would play Sean O'Hare, who he does some things. He's got experience, but I think it's a pretty unnecessary risk to take it. And that leads us, before we get out of here, let's do it. Jordan, I know you got some things going on. You want to build a lineup? What do you say? Okay. We're going to do this. Last week, by the way, our lineup was real good.
It was.
Do that.
It's fire.
Yeah, straight fire. So we're going to keep that going. We're going to put in a lineup, and this is a lineup that we are building to try to win the biggest tournament. So it's going to get a little dangerous. Pull up our lineup builder, which again, it's all part of why you want to be part of Team Stokastic here. Where do we start with this lineup?
All right.
Marcel Seam. No.
Marcel Seam, yes. Who's like min price? Paul O'Hare. No, let's go Keith Mitchell.
Killer Keith. Yeah. And I'll make this very, very easy, because if we're going to start with Killer Keith Mitchell, we're going to pair him up with the guy that I think is just as dangerous, and he's right above him in Denny McCarthy. I think that is a win equity spot that you wouldn't think. Those guys can win this tournament.
Big Dan and Killer Keith. I like it.
Yep.
I don't mind it at all. Now, our question here is, let me see here on some things. Interesting. So we got a decision. Do we want to go triple in the 9K? Or do we want to like dip down? I am going to now I got to decide between my two guys. I almost wish it was your turn. I'm going to go with Lipsky. Let's go with Lipsky.
Okay, we got Lipsky in there. So we got 2 9s, got an 8. I'm gonna, because I don't know where we're going just yet, I'm gonna keep it very generic. I'm gonna do what they say in the NFL draft: when you don't have a need, you go best available style. To me, Russell Knox checks a ton of boxes. He's a good price. I think he's gonna make the cut for us. And it gives us a million 2v2s with McCarthy, Mitchell, Lipsky, and Knox. You have 8K left on average for 2 spots.
Oh man. Okay. Oh, should I
put leverage?
I really, what's that?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm very tempted to go with your guy, but I'm going to go with my guy, and I'm going to get by the other 8K guy. Just bypass. I'm going to go Trey Mullenix. I like the way he played last week. I'm telling you, if he had just hit his driver semi good, he probably is like top 20, potentially top 10. He played pretty well. He putted well. Yeah, I like it. I just think he's underrated. So I'm going to throw him in.
So you did two things that are equally important. One, you picked a good player, but more importantly, you boxed out EVR, because that
was the guy. I'm like sitting here. I don't need to take the 2% because Mullenix will be lower owned as well. And we don't have a ton of chalk in here. So I'll take the slightly less risky play in Mullenix.
So what I like about this with Mullenix, you can go really anywhere. I honestly think I would go to Kurt Kitayama and leave $400 on the table.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's what I was going to say. You can go anywhere. You can go in the low 7K range if you want. That's the nice thing about this. Yeah.
Yeah. I also will say, with the same lineup, if you use, instead of Mullenix, you can go get Detry, and then you'll be left with 7,200, and that's Tarum, Merritt, Piercy.
Oh yeah.
That's also a really good 2v2 in my opinion. Detry and one of those guys I think makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Agree, 100%. I actually don't want Davis Riley right now, Donnie Baseball. We're going to wait until Florida comes. He's
So
looking
you
a
hope he
little.
plays bad, so you get a
Yeah,
better number.
that's right. Yeah.
All right, I like it. There you have it, friends. Another edition in the books. Again, at the Fantasy Grind, at JazzRaz DFS. You can find all our work here at Stokastic. We're going to bounce on out of here. But before we do, if you have a hot take to leave the people with, you have one for us. Or do you want me to go first?
Go first, because I had one and now I completely forgot it.
I'm going to keep it very generic. It's a hot take just because anytime you're saying something that's like on a 2% chance to break even, I think Denny McCarthy is going to win. I think that Denny McCarthy is going to win this tournament. One of these days he's going to win. And why not here? If he rolls it, this is as good a chance. It's wide open up top. I think Denny McCarthy, who's on my outright card, check out everything on the Odd Chopper channel, is live to win this bad boy.
Okay. That's perfect. That kills two birds because now you've told me who you really like as well. And now I don't have to get mad at you again like I did at the start of the show. Just kidding. But I'm going to go Peter Malnati, top 5.
That's caliente.
Yeah. I really think, again, this is a player who we've seen it. He gets in this form and he comes to his favorite courses and he performs. And like you said, he makes his money. So I think you're going to see that from him this week. I'm very interested to see how he plays. I think it's going to be a good one.
That is good stuff right there. Again, friends, Waste Management's coming up. It's going to get dangerously insane. And then the players will be here before you know it. Also, we've got some really exciting stuff going on over on the Odd Chopper channel. If you like betting golf, we're going to have a channel devoted just to that. We'll be unveiling that shortly. I cannot wait. Check that out. You'll be seeing plenty of content over there. But for me, for Jeff, of course, for Mr. Klein behind the glass, good luck. Enjoy the tournament. We'll talk to you guys next week. Keep your mall naughty. All right.